In 1999, a man walked into a Wells Fargo bank in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and calmly demanded cash. At first, he was cool and composed. No threats, no chaos. He simply asked for the money, claiming it wasn't for him, but for a greater cause, to help poor Native Americans and address the ongoing injustices they faced. It almost sounded noble, but soon, the true nature of his robberies became clear. Each new heist revealed his fiery violence. He was fast, tough, and always well protected. He didn't hesitate to use force when things didn't go his way. And the once noble act quickly spiraled into a dangerous spree that left fear in its wake. FBI investigators vowed to bring him down, risking their own lives to track the violent felon. But at every turn, they were met with dangerous surprises. This was no ordinary bank robber. He was clever, unpredictable, and always one step ahead. As the manhunt intensified, law enforcement realized they were chasing someone who had nothing to lose and who would stop at nothing to escape. This is the story of how one man, under the guise of charity, unleashed a wave of terror, pushing investigators to their limits in a desperate bid to stop him before it was too late. A story full of twists and unexpected events, so make sure to watch until the end. In the heart of Albuquerque, Byron Chubbuck embarked on a criminal journey that would leave the city reeling. His first robbery was executed with a calm demeanor that belied the chaos he was about to unleash. On that fateful day, he walked into a local Wells Fargo bank, exuding an air of confidence as he approached the teller. With a simple demand for cash, he set into motion a series of events that would escalate drastically. Chubbuck's methodical approach was chilling. He understood the importance of composure in such high-stakes situations. The teller, caught off guard, complied with his request, handing over the cash without raising an alarm. This initial success only fueled his audacity. In a matter of hours, he struck again, robbing multiple banks in a single day, leaving behind little evidence and no fingerprints, a ghost in the eyes of law enforcement. As news of the robberies spread, local police and FBI agents sprang into action. The first to get on the case were Special Agents Scott Campbell and John Tanberg of the FBI's Albuquerque resident agency. They received a call reporting a bank robbery in progress, and what began as a standard response quickly evolved into a complex investigation. Arriving at the scene, agents were met with an unsettling calm. Witnesses later counted how Byron Chubbuck had walked into the Wells Fargo bank with an air of confidence, demanding cash without raising an alarm. Most of the customers had no idea a robbery was unfolding. There were no shouts or chaos, just a chilling silence that would haunt those present. Agents learned that Chubbuck had executed his plan with precision. He moved swiftly, collecting cash from tellers while maintaining a demeanor that suggested he was in complete control. The description they gathered was vague. A white male, possibly Hispanic, with dark hair and an average build, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. This lack of distinct features would prove to be a significant hurdle for investigators. Despite their thorough examination of the bank's interior, technicians found no usable fingerprints or any physical evidence left behind. The security cameras had captured footage of the robber, but the quality was poor, grainy images that failed to provide a clear view of his face. Frustration mounted as agents realized they had little to go on. Chubbuck had vanished into thin air. As the investigation unfolded, the FBI agents received a crucial break. A neighbor living behind the bank had witnessed a man fleeing the scene, running around the corner just moments after the robbery. What caught the attention of investigators was a cloud of red mist that followed him, a telltale sign that he had triggered a die pack hidden among the stolen cash. This was their man. The witness provided a vital piece of information: a full license plate of a vehicle registered in Nevada. This detail confirmed their suspicions that Chubbuck was not a local. He was likely passing through Albuquerque. Agents quickly ran the plate through their dispatch center, uncovering the registered owner and an address linked to a motel off the Las Vegas Strip. It seemed plausible that this could be a cover to throw off law enforcement. However, as they dug deeper, the investigation hit a dead end. Determined not to lose momentum, agents decided to take another approach. They ran the plate number through a credit bureau and received an unexpected hit. The FBI discovered that the vehicle was also tied to an address in Wyoming. An agent in Wyoming conducted an interview with the registered owner, asking about his whereabouts on the day of the robberies. The man explained that he had been in Wyoming interviewing for a job as a postal worker, an alibi corroborated by his supervisor. He insisted he was a law-abiding citizen, completely unaware of any criminal activity associated with his vehicle. But then came an unexpected twist. He revealed that he no longer possessed the car. It was now in the hands of his ex-wife, Carlito, who lived in Albuquerque. This revelation sent agents and investigators back to square one, but it also opened a new avenue for investigation. They knew they had to reach out to Carlito and explore any connections she might have with Byron Chubbuck and his growing list of crimes. After tracking down Carlito, the ex-wife of the vehicle's registered owner, agents were eager to gather information. They contacted her to discuss the whereabouts of her vehicle and who had control over it at the time of bank robberies. Carlito explained that on the day of the robbery, she had been at work, and while she had a large family in the area who often borrowed her car, she was unsure who had it the previous day. She noted that the vehicle was parked in its usual spot near her apartment, but mentioned it was lower on gas than when she had left it. This detail raised suspicions among investigators, especially considering that they were searching for evidence of the dye pack explosion that had occurred during the robbery. Despite her consent to search, agents found no traces of red dye inside the vehicle. While it was possible that the witness had misidentified the license plate number, investigators felt uneasy about Carlito's story. The coincidence of her vehicle being linked to a robbery, while registered in Nevada, seemed too significant to ignore. Although there was no hard evidence connecting her to the crimes, something about her account felt suspicious. As agents continued their investigation, they were met with frustration. The robberies remained unsolved, and several months passed without any new leads. Then in March, Chubbuck struck again, this time hitting multiple banks in rapid succession. His modus operandi remained consistent. He would enter quickly, demand cash, and leave without leaving any evidence behind. From mid-March through to May, approximately 6 banks fell victim to his reign of terror. Witnesses provided descriptions that pointed to a serial bank robber operating in Albuquerque. Local police and FBI agents knew they needed to identify this lone bandit before someone got hurt. As Chubbuck's spree continued, he grew increasingly aggressive. According to FBI Special Agent John Tanker, he began taking more risks by moving behind teller counters and demanding money from several drawers at once. His unpredictability escalated. Agents feared that with each robbery, he became more desperate and willing to use violence. These were signs that suggested he might be under the influence of narcotics during some encounters. His behavior often crossed into physical aggression that seemed inappropriate for the situation. Chubbuck would sometimes surprise tellers by announcing that the stolen money would go to starving children in Mexico, further complicating his twisted narrative. After one robbery in June, agents finally obtained better security camera photos of Chubbuck. With no physical evidence linking him to any crime scene, these images became their best lead. The FBI understood the importance of public engagement. They needed to capture the community's imagination. In a strategic move, the FBI dubbed him Robin the Hood, playing on his dubious claims about using stolen cash for charity. Local media quickly picked on this story, which only fueled Chubbuck's notoriety. He seemed to revel in his newfound fame. Witnesses reported instances where he would taunt tellers by saying things like, "Hey, you know who I am. I'm Robin the Hood." Despite this attention-grabbing name, agents remained skeptical about his altruistic claims. They suspected that, like many bank robbers before him, he was likely financing a drug habit or other criminal activities with his ill-gotten gains. As agents continued their watchful waiting for Chubbuck to strike again, They felt increasingly at his mercy. After 14 robberies with no solid leads on his identity or whereabouts, all eyes turned back to Carlito's car as their only possible connection to Robin the Hood. FBI agent Scott Campbell kept in contact with Carlito over several months. He believed she could provide valuable information or evidence that would lead them to Chubbuck. Finally, in August, Carlito reached out again, this time with crucial information that would change everything. Carlito, now 8 months pregnant, reached out to Agent Scott Campbell. Her voice trembled with urgency as she said, "We need to talk. I have some information that will solve the cases." In that moment, everything changed. Carlito revealed that the man behind the mask of the notorious bank robber was none other than her husband, Byron Chubbuck. She insisted on explaining more in person, prompting Campbell to arrange a meeting at her apartment the following morning. As agents prepared for the encounter, they pulled Chubbuck's record and discovered a troubling history of violence and gang affiliations in St. Louis. Carlito explained that she felt safe discussing the matter now because Chubbuck had recently moved to St. Louis. Despite agents offering a more secure location for the interview, she declined, insisting that she felt secure enough to talk at home. However, agents approached with caution, knowing that a surprise confrontation with Chubbuck could escalate into violence. Before entering her apartment, Agent Campbell made a phone call to ensure Chubbuck was not present and to gather any additional information from Carlito since their last conversation. Once they confirmed he was not around, they'd radioed their dispatch to inform them of their location. As they entered the apartment, Agents Campbell and Tanber conducted a quick search to ensure no one else was there. Carlito wasted no time in identifying her husband from the bank surveillance photos. She confirmed his membership in Albuquerque's notorious Bruton gang and expressed her fears about his increasingly violent behavior. She explained that she was coming forward because she feared for her life and that of her unborn son. Things had escalated beyond control. With desperation in her voice, Carlito pleaded for agents to arrest Chubbuck quickly, fearing his threats against her and other family members. He had warned her that if she ever spoke to law enforcement, his gang would retaliate against them. But as agents listened intently, they sensed that danger was just moments away. Just as they began to process this critical information, a vehicle pulled up outside Carlito's apartment. She looked out of the window and gasped, "It's him." In an instant, the agents made a split-second decision to hide in the bedroom, knowing that a confrontation with Chubbuck could easily escalate into violence. Special Agent Campbell had already devised a plan for such an eventuality. If Chubbuck appeared, they were prepared to make a probable cause arrest or a warrantless arrest. As they moved into the bedroom, both agents upholstered their weapons, ready for whatever night came next. From their hiding spot, Campbell could hear Chubbuck's voice but couldn't see him. He watched as Carlito spoke to her husband, aware she was likely revealing their presence. Time seemed to stretch in that moment. What felt like mere seconds dragged on like an eternity. Suddenly, Campbell fired 2 rounds through the common wall, aiming at where he believed Chubbuck was positioned. The sound of gunfire echoed as he realized multiple shots had been fired from outside. Chubbuck paused for a moment, possibly reloading his weapon. Campbell braced himself, prepared to defend against an imminent attack. Just then, a figure appeared in the doorway. Thinking it was Chubbuck, he instinctively pulled the trigger, but then he recognized it was Carlito. In a split decision, he managed to deflect his shot just in time. "You all right? Are you okay? Stay right here," he urged her as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The room was filled with chaos, bullets whizzing by, but miraculously, neither agent sustained any significant injuries. Carlito remained unharmed, though a bullet had come so close it cut off some of her hair. The agents decided to stay put in the apartment, maintaining their defensive position while unsure of Chubbuck's whereabouts. Local police were called to secure the area and assist the FBI agents. Uniformed officers arrived quickly, establishing a perimeter around the building while communicating with the agents inside. Once they felt secure enough, they escorted Carlito to a hospital for precautionary checks. As police fanned out across the neighborhood, looking for any signs of Chubbuck's escape, Lieutenant Terry Ward of the Albuquerque Police Department's Special Investigations Division expressed concern about how this standoff might end. Given Chubbuck's violent history and willingness to engage with law enforcement in gunfights, it was clear that this could very well be his last stand. Then came a breakthrough. An officer spotted Chubbuck through the window of another apartment just 2 doors down from Carlito's unit. A tense standoff began as authorities surrounded him, but he showed no signs of surrendering. The Albuquerque Police Department deployed their hostage negotiator in hopes of convincing Chubbuck to give himself up. However, silence hung in the air as he refused to respond. He kept moving within the building in an attempt to get away. For 3 agonizing hours, there was no communication from him until suddenly, he made a break for Carlito's apartment. In an instant, officers took action and deployed a beanbag round from a shotgun, a non-lethal measure to stun him without causing serious harm. Throughout this entire ordeal, miraculously, no one was injured. Investigators quickly arrested Chubbuck and transported him back to the FBI office for booking. Byron Chubbuck pled guilty to 14 counts of bank robbery and assault on federal agents, receiving a hefty sentence of 40 years in prison. However, the agents involved in the case could recover only a few dollars of the stolen cash. In hindsight, they never believed his claims that the money was intended to feed starving children. As they got to know him better, it became clear that his true motivation was to feed his narcotics habit. But Chubbuck had no intention of spending the next 4 decades behind bars. On December 21, 2000, he announced his desire to fire his court-appointed lawyers and withdraw his guilty plea, a calculated move that would require him to attend a court hearing. After that hearing, as he was being transported back to the Santa Fe Correctional Facility in Santa Fe County, Chubbuck executed a daring escape. He had somehow obtained a handcuff key, freeing himself from both his wrist and ankle restraints. In a bold maneuver, he kicked out the van window and began to climb out. The driver heard a loud bang and initially thought it was an accident. When he looked back, he was shocked to see Chubbuck halfway out the window. The guards tried to intervene, but Chubbuck was moving too quickly for them to react without leaving the other prisoners unattended. In an instant, Byron Chubbuck was on the run. As news spread of his escape in Albuquerque, U.S. Marshal Senior Inspector Eric Neighbor reported that shots were fired at Chubbuck during his getaway. However, it appeared he had not been struck by any of those rounds. Local police coordinated a massive manhunt involving extensive law enforcement efforts. K-9 units searched the area while helicopters conducted aerial sweeps above where he had escaped. The FBI understood that a desperate man on the run could be capable of anything. They needed to find him quickly before innocent people were harmed. As hours passed without any signs of Chubbuck, authorities were forced to widen their search area. Investigators from 6 different agencies worked tirelessly to lock down the vicinity, setting up roadblocks and searching street by street, house by house. Despite their massive efforts, they came up empty until a local woman reported she had been carjacked. She described how a man fitting Chubbuck's description had forced her into her car just an hour earlier and ordered her to drive him to the outskirts of town before releasing her unharmed. She provided investigators with details about where she dropped him and what he was wearing at that time. Investigators refocused their search in that area, but found nothing and ultimately called off the manhunt at 9 p.m. By then, hours had passed. He could have traveled hundreds of miles away. With no immediate leads on his whereabouts, they shifted gears from an active manhunt to an investigative approach aimed at locating where he might be hiding. Interviews with family members and known associates revealed resistance. Betrayal was the last thing they wanted. The infamous Bruton gang would not give up one of their own easily, especially given Chubbuck's desperate and violent actions. In light of his escape, the U.S. Marshal Service placed him on their 15 most wanted list. Authorities knew that Chubbuck would be highly motivated to avoid capture again. This made him incredibly dangerous. The FBI began monitoring locations known to be frequented by gang members while keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity. Despite their vigilance and ongoing investigations into recent bank robberies, hoping he might strike again, Chubbuck remained strangely silent for a week. Law enforcement recognized that with his heavy drug habit, it wouldn't be long before he needed cash for meth. With each passing day, investigators felt an increasing urgency. They believed Chubbuck would soon resort back to robbing banks as a means to fund his addiction. After months of evading capture and leaving law enforcement frustrated, Byron Chubbuck's desperation reached a tipping point. On the morning of February 5, 2001, a pivotal moment unfolded at a local radio station in Albuquerque. A letter from Byron Chubbuck was dropped off, and TJ Trout, the morning DJ from 94 Rock, was taken aback by its significance. Upon reading the letter, TJ discovered that Chubbuck had laid out specific conditions for his surrender. He demanded to be interviewed live on air during a morning show and wanted to implicate law enforcement officials he believed had treated them poorly. Chubbuck insisted that if these conditions were met, he would surrender peacefully. Unsure of the letter's authenticity, TJ decided to go on air immediately and announce its arrival. He urged Chubbuck to call back if he was indeed the sender. Moments later, the phone rang, and TJ found himself speaking directly to Chubbuck. He sounded agitated and nervous, revealing his paranoia, and he expressed his concern about being watched by law enforcement. Chubbuck complained about how authorities were trying to kill him and recounted a previous shootout at his home with his pregnant wife present. The call ended ominously when TJ asked if there was a way to contact him again. "Hell no," Chubbuck replied sharply, indicating he was heavily armed and prepared for confrontation. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the station immediately contacted law enforcement about both the letter and the phone call. Lab technicians confirmed Chubbuck's fingerprint on the letter, authenticating it was genuine. Investigators reviewed security footage from the station and noted that while the person who delivered the letter was not Chubbuck, they had a clear image of him. This lead would eventually point them toward Ronald Baker, a known associate of Chubbuck's gang. With this critical information in hand, authorities turned their focus to Baker's mobile home, hoping it would lead them directly to Chubbuck. As investigators honed in on Ronald Baker, the Albuquerque gang squad set up surveillance on his mobile home, suspecting that Byron Chubbuck might be hiding there. This lead was crucial, but it was not the only development in the case. One of Chubbuck's associates had been arrested for carjacking and was not facing significant pressure from law enforcement to cooperate. Fearing retribution from his gang about also facing a lengthy prison sentence, he ultimately agreed to become an informant. With a wiretap device concealed on him, the informant entered Baker's trailer, hoping to gather information about Chubbuck's whereabouts. Tension filled the air as he engaged with those inside, but when he inquired about Chubbuck, he was met with evasive responses. The atmosphere was charged, and the stakes were high. If the gang realized he was cooperating with law enforcement, his life could be in danger. Despite the risks, the mission was critical for investigators who believed they were close to uncovering Chubbuck's location. After a tense encounter inside Ronald's trailer, investigators were convinced that Byron Chubbuck was indeed hiding there. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as law enforcement prepared to move in with specially trained tactical teams, ensuring they kept the situation under control. Every second counted. They knew Chubbuck was armed and dangerous, making careful planning essential. As tactical teams assembled, a sense of urgency filled the air. They were determined to apprehend Chubbuck without escalating the situation into violence. With their strategy in place, they positioned themselves around the trailer, ready to act at a moment's notice. As law enforcement closed in, Detective Richard Lewis spotted a vehicle linked to Chubbuck parked nearby. Recognizing the opportunity, he made the split-second decision to force a crash to apprehend him. In a dramatic turn of events, Lewis maneuvered his vehicle into Chubbuck's car, initiating a confrontation that would determine the fugitive's fate. In the aftermath of the crash, officers approached cautiously and found Chubbuck lying motionless on the ground with a gunshot wound to his chest, but still alive. His accomplice, Ronald Baker, was also arrested at the scene, dazed from the crash. For the second time, Robin the Hood was brought in front of the law. The same 14 accounts of robberies and other charges were put up against him, and this time, his original sentence of 40 years was doubled to 80. He did manage to recover fully from the gunshot wound on his chest. In 2016, 25 years were taken off his sentences after he won an appeal. Regardless of what we say about the man, he was intelligent. It's just a shame he chose to use his intellect through unlawful means. Credit also goes to law enforcement for not giving up and staying put. It is because of them that a dangerous criminal and his associates are behind bars.